How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another art stream. Um, as you can see, we're still working on this one, but we're getting a lot further. I'm about done with it, honestly. There's like some things I need to adjust in the bottom half of the illustration. Um, but yeah, I'll be working through that with you guys. I don't think it should take too long, but we'll see. I have a little bit more time today. Um, but I'm also running out of time at the same time. But I'll make it work. I'm gonna give myself probably, obviously, I'm gonna stream with you guys for like an hour and some change, and then I'm gonna probably work on it for another, I don't know, 3 hours maybe, and then it might be where I need it to be. But we'll see. Give me a moment. I'm gonna go ahead and share around some links. That way everyone will know. And yeah, sit tight. Alright, I've returned. Alright, so give me a moment. Wow. Alright, so been working on this for some days now. Kind of get it, well, where it needed to go. And I kind of feel like it's about where it needs to be. There's some adjustments I want to make to the illustration as far as the background goes. I had it a very specific way before, but I wanted to, I wanted to look up more reference for it, and I think that I could do a little better with the background, but we'll see. Kind of need to sketch out an idea. But essentially, the bottom portion of this is a bit flat, and I need to put some more dimension there. So I've been trying to rework it for like a couple moments before I streamed, honestly. And I found some decent reference, but the only problem is I don't have the perfect angle. So I could make, I could just go exactly by the reference, or I might have to come up with something else. But either way, that's where we are. So I'm gonna go back to the reference real quick and see if I can apply something that makes sense. Of course, I have this really nice reference here, but of course it isn't at the angle that I want it to be at. So just gotta do something with what you got. So I'm gonna go ahead and sketch out some things. The key detail is to figure out how much space is in front of us and how that space is being divided. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually go to another layer and grab this red so I can start trying to figure out where everything is. Which, sure, I should have already done all this, but I didn't. I feel our middle should be there, and then you have the rest of this space. That's kind of how I'm feeling about that. It's a little off, but this should be a little higher. Not that high. Could definitely just start using the other tools now. So about here. Okay, so the way the paneling works at the bottom of the car, see, from the area we are, there is something that kind of does, let me see if I can draw it smaller, something that kind of does something like this. And of course we have, well, I'm just cut that part like that. Kind of does that. Then of course we have this part of the car, which is kind of the edge here, kind of round, has a little bit more space in it, in this area, and then it kind of thins out. So you can assume the same for this area in the front here. This is the floor area, or, yeah. Alright, so, and this is essentially where you kind of flip the seats a certain way, but essentially once you start going up this wall as well, you get this area. I think there's also a window that you can kind of see around here as well. I think that for the most part, that's what we would see there. Other than obviously, like that's where that kind of starts. So I think that might be a little wrong on the spacing a little bit here as well. Move, of course. Why? Why am I using the soft eraser? All right, I clicked it by mistake on the last things I was working on. Too much here, but the important thing is there's two panels. They're doing something like this. This is joint right here. Is of course the name here, if you wanted to include that. How the panels kind of fit, the little rounded area in the front here. In the middle here, there is another way that it kind of connects a certain way. It's not exactly a flat, straight line or whatever. So if you were to split it in the middle here, kind of has like this type of thing going on. Still probably getting the spacing a bit wrong. I think it's a bit flatter than, well, not flatter, it's a bit smaller. Yep, something closer to that. Something like that. And then we start kind of getting into where everything else kind of goes, where you have middle area here. That's where I believe the latch is for the how the door, or the it is a type of door, but it's not a door. You know, the back area. I forget what that is even called right now, but how the car opens right now. Then of course everything else kind of rounds upwards. So right. And we have the longer areas here as well, which also means that it's kind of rounds around there for the full space of the car to some degree. But anyway, the other thing that's important about this is that they have lines, small little lines that kind of go in the direction of the car. There's this little lip here, along with these other kind of lines that go around the curve. But then they have these horizontal lines. I don't know how many there are, I could easily count them, but essentially they do this. and that's what I have to kind of figure out. Good part is I can kind of grab this and start manipulating it to kind of be what I need it to be. Kind of figure out where that's going to fit in my spacing. Thinking about right there. And now I can kind of use this as an outline to kind of figure out, how I want to use it. Well, how I want to apply these things here. Of course, don't have to have this be red. It just is red. I can change it to a different color. Or I can change it to something that doesn't have a lot of value. But I'm gonna use it that way. The funny thing about this pen is I can't technically. Oh yeah, of course. You guys might know this, but one of the ways in which I always check my illustrations, or a lot of individuals check their illustrations, is by changing their layer to grayscale so they can kind of see just the value instead of the color. Um, One of the things that I do at the end, which I'll get to, I'll show you, but when I know exactly what my focal point is, there's a multitude of different things that I like to do to kind of force um, you as the person looking at it to look where I want you to look, right? Or to stay in an area I want you to stay in, right? So, luckily, I think I've done some of that already with my composition, um, which I'm gonna keep it a buck. I didn't plan for. It's kind of like something I think about so much that I think subconsciously I've gotten good enough to kind of go in that direction without needing to focus so much on it so much anymore. But essentially, um, a lot of the times, the face is just going to be the focal point. It just comes with the territory. Is the face shown? Can you see the expressions? Okay, cool. Most people are going to look at the face. Sure, you're going to look at everything else to some degree, but I have to figure out how to make sure that the focal point isn't fighting. It's essentially just a no-brainer where to look. And sure, I could do a lot more of that with this illustration. There's still a lot of tricks and things that I can kind of do. I'm going to show you some of those because one of those is like I will usually overlay something over a layer to kind of force the I'll kind of force things to the background a bit more. But I've done some of that to some degree, mainly through line work. It's another reason why I like keeping my line work. I guess it keeps it more, I guess, closer to like a pop art type aesthetic. Keeping the line art, though I don't think it looks like comic booky. It definitely looks more cartoony, like cartooning, like a Bill Watterson type thing. It's more in that realm, right? The Charlie Brown. I've seen some Hallmark cards that obviously aren't superhero or whatever, but they kind of have that more softer way in which they might shade or have saturated colors and stuff like that. So it's more on that scale or that side of the scale for illustration, but I like it. But I can also dictate things as far as like importance based off of size, based off of lines, different type of lines, thickness of line, and I would also even say the darkness of line, right? The darker something is on something that is light, while also being larger or whatever it is, gives you visual hierarchy. So you'll definitely look for essentially the things that stand out compared to the other things that don't stand out as much. But let me get back to it so I can, I guess, finish off this and see where we land. Let me turn this back on, turn the values down. Let's see what we can do. Right. Wait a minute, where'd that go? So yeah, here I'm kind of just painting over my sketch as an underdrawing. It's going to be done in multiple passes, but right now I'm just kind of using it to kind of figure out where everything's going to be. And I'm also trying to make sure that I'm controlling visual interest, Like I know that this is a very light area, um, and it's gonna carry some visual interest. But I'm gonna change that when I do my second pass, and I'm gonna add some shadows down here so that you don't stay down here too long, right? Sure, you're supposed to be up there, so that's where I want you to look. So gotta make sure that you know where I would like you to be by controlling that. So I'll be coming down here, adding some shadows, adding probably some sort of gradation. Because technically this should be, one of the furthest places from the light source, which is coming from above. And we also have things blocking us from getting total light. So even if there was light, it would be a subtle light away from the character, where it will start getting lit from again. And it's not something we have right now. Let's do it again over here. One of the things I used to be fascinated with is kind of like how um, when I would study certain painters, or a lot of how you say some of the best painters from different eras. When it came to like, I guess, when it comes to like really good painters, one of the things that I would focus on was, again, kind of controlling where you look, but I also paid attention to essentially where they didn't want you to look and what they kind of were able to get away with, right? Because you think about some of the best painters who like could render the butt off, right? They could just put so much lighting and value and things of that nature seemingly onto a figure. You think, wow, this figure is so good, you know. And then you start looking at it a little bit more and going, wait a minute, there's actually not that much detail here. Um, they have maybe two relative values that they're staying within um, for this part of the character. They don't, like, they care about it, but it's more like they figured out a simple way to indicate what that is, whether or not it's an arm, it's a leg, whatever it is. And then they go about adding way more detail in the area where they want you to pay attention. Um, and that level of like control and consistency really made me think to myself, like, wait a minute, like, So when we talk about these artists, we're not saying that everything they ever did, like all the figures, all the drawings, were up to that level. It's more about like they could have done those things with those figures, but instead they kind of picked out who was the main character, if you will, like who was the character they wanted you to focus on, and that's where they put all their attention. And I think something about that just makes total sense because, you know, you know the Incredibles where if you heard her name, the lady says, no, it's not the lady, it's the guy. I forget his name. Um, Wait, was it him? I believe it was the villain. He's like, if everyone's super, then no one's super. You know, yeah, I think it was the villain. His name Syndrome or something. I forget his name. But either way, I kind of think of things in that way, like as far as like a heart, I can't pronounce the word. Um, but as far as just making things kind of make sense like that, it's kind of like you can have your detail, but if you have too many characters with too much detail, it kind of can become cumbersome. I remember talking to you guys about that, where it's like some of my favorite artists when it comes to drawing comics or reading comics, they have this really good understanding of how much detail they can kind of get away with before it becomes overdone. Trying to think, did I do this one right? I think I did. I think I just have to go around it again. I think that's what the sketch is telling me. Either way, I'm not trying to overdo it, right? That's what we're not trying to do. I'm trying to think. But you know, I think that makes sense. When I draw a painting or whatever, I always think of it in, or I try to make it as simple as possible. Because the painting is going to be a certain level of complexity. It's even in drawing. A lot of times when you see contour hatching, they're usually where the form is changing, right? Where the form is rounding away from the light, right? Rounding into the darkness. That's where you usually see hatching when it comes to the contours of a form. So the light and shadow brings the complexity. The drawing itself can be complex, but it depends on like how much of that detail you want to get through the drawing. Do you want the drawing to have the complexity of that, or are you going to paint it? Well, then you can make a detailed drawing, which you can use as a guide. But that means most of your details might be where their form changes. The drawing itself will probably be, a good drawing, of the nice strong lines and things of that nature. But you're gonna be putting your time and attention where you believe you want the details to be, or where you want to force the details to be. And then where you don't want people to look, you just put less detail. You know. Right. And talk about it. Yesterday I went out to the movies and went out with the family. It was good film, good time, and that's why I couldn't stream that day. And it was funny because like I was thinking to myself like, dang, how come I didn't like think to inform people? And it's like, yeah, because you were gone, you were out before you had thought that you were be getting back in the house, and then by the time the movie was over, it was already past 7 p.m. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just tell everybody, yeah, definitely not today. But I still put some work into this. You guys see me work on this each day. Tomorrow there will definitely not be any stream. Um, but I believe the day after tomorrow there will be a stream. I often think about getting a more streamlined process, but I think I would have to find something that's closer to like cell shading in order to like have that happen because um, it's just not easy to do. I guess I kind of like the idea of like painting. Well, I like the idea of coloring a drawing. I'll put it that way, right? I like the idea of coloring a drawing, um, but it's never simple. It's always like okay, and then we start kind of painting and doing all these other things, and then I'm like, oh crap, things have become, uh, things have become a little bit more complicated. So I'm always just like, okay, well, maybe I need to come up with something a little bit less complicated to work on, or as far as to not to work on, but to change uh, the process. The other thing for me is like, as much as I've done digital, I still only kind of come to like enjoy drawing. I like painting, I guess sometimes, but I've never come up with a great process to be like, okay, I'm just gonna do this every single time. It never feels that way. I feel like I have a lot more growing to do, I guess there. Or I've seen some people who have they have everything. They have like consistent style, consistent, line quality. I guess they have their lines, as they have their pens they want to use. They have, their coloring process down. A lot of their stuff kind of looks very similar. It's like, they follow the exact same process or something very similar. I never felt like I got there, you know. I feel like I try something, I do this. I have like a somewhat consistent start where my drawing my drawing process is the same ish, but maybe I'm not on the same size of a canvas or something. Maybe like I enjoy sketching. My sketches relatively are similar to each other in process as far as working them and putting extra effort into them and things of that nature. My inking process has changed up here and there, but for the most part, it's very similar. As soon as it comes to coloring, it's like, okay, how do I want to color this? I've never found a cell shaded style that I particularly enjoy that I do. But that might be just on me because I might need to do more studies. I need to just find someone who does one. that I like enough to want to just copy, and I've just never found one um, versatile enough, you know. And I also have this thing about me where I'm just like, I don't want to kind of look exactly like anyone else, so it would take me some time to probably find a way to merge those styles instead of just looking like, for example, like, you know, I think some of the current anime joints look kind of cool here and there, um, but I don't particularly feel like the things that I want to draw will look cool with something that looks exactly like the way they shade or color or whatever it is. So it's always like me fighting against, you know, uh, looking exactly like something else. So I have to do some more studying or something, but right now I just don't have like a cell shaded style that I love. There, you know, there is one, but I would need to. So there's this artist who goes by the name of who went by the name of Kogecha. Um, I may have said it incorrectly or whatever, but I found their artwork, and I may not exactly draw like them, but I love how they use their line work and their their values and their colors together. It's a very interesting style to me. So, I'm looking it up right now. So, Kogecha, um, I believe they passed away like some time ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago at this point, maybe. Um, but they have this style that kind of looks like, so it's cell shading, but it has a lot more lines when it comes to like being upfront with you where the shadows are going to be and where the highlights are going to be. They just create like an outline for each one of these things, and then they kind of fill in these shapes. But something about the way they do it just kind of is very striking to me, and also their color choices. A lot of times I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at something that's probably a gradation. But if you were to open up a larger, you know, canvas or whatever and looked at one of Kogecha's illustrations, what they're doing is using flats. They're just stacking them next to each other. They even have outlines. Sometimes the outlines are apparent to you. They're very noticeable. And other times I feel like they're a little bit subdued. Um, I just think it's really cool. I guess I'm more in love with the idea of um, line work truly controlling the medium, I guess, while everything after line is just kind of like a planned out expression to some degree, but it's controlled in such a way that it gives off the effect you really want it to. I don't know. I just want to have that type of stuff. I feel like Kogecha's stuff feels a little bit iconic when I look at it. Um, some of it anyway. There's there's some excitement to some of these things. Like there's I'm looking at what's the name of this? Characterdesignreferences.com. They have like a little section on them. Um, Scroll down to the bottom. There's like this light pole or whatever, or this mirror. It's a light pole. We're a reflection of what it's going to see in the sky. And I'm just like, something about this is just so interesting. I believe it's the color choices. It also has noise. I think the other thing that digital just always struggles with is kind of like, it's very organized. And because of that, it feels very robotic. So you kind of have to inject a bit of uncertainty, or you have to inject a little bit of imperfection onto it. It just feels better in a way to me. So Kogecha using this art style with these flat lines essentially, or these very clean lines, I will say, these shapes, and then using shape and line to indicate where form changes were gonna be. Okay, I did this hair, and then there's a little bit of like hair strands, very small amount of them, right? And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to outline where the shadow of that's gonna be, and the shadow of that's gonna be, or whatever, the occlusion shadow. And then it's like, okay, and then you got a highlight area. I don't know, something about it is just really interesting to me. It reminds me of like some of the old school anime styles that used to be more like that, a little bit more selective with how things went. I would also say it's not that simple. It also like falls into like, okay, you draw like a anime character, right? And they look, I would say, generically anime character. But then you start adding in these extra lines, and that to me becomes the expression of that character, or your expression of character or drawing ability or whatever. Because everyone sees you can do these outlines of these quote unquote generic anime characters, but everything else, that's not something you usually see in the forefront anymore. I think people kind of like things kind of like clean shape, and then you get in, get out of there. This guy's going through and doing the thing that we do with it's mapping, right? It's just mapping where you map out where your shadows, where your highlights are gonna be. But he's doing it with this type of style. He's kind of leaving it right there in front, and he's just showing you like, I'm using these as selections. And I kind of feel like, when you usually map out these types of shapes, I would say that they're not taken seriously, as far as like they're kind of loose. They kind of don't have to be like looked at very long. But when Kogetcha does it, he does it like it's another layer of like inking that he's doing. And it's very clean, it's very direct, and it's very much a main line that you're going to look at. But the only reason you don't look at it as much is because the colors have been selected so well that like it just almost feels as though these are, I don't know, well done illustrations taking in consideration of value. There's some other artists, I believe, back in the day who was doing illustrations like this as well. I forget their name. I collected their art, but unfortunately, like all other artists, or a lot of other artists, I collect a lot of images that I don't have time to study from. So it's somewhere on wherever I saved it, but this it's basically like clear line style, something that the artist, I believe Hergé, who worked on Tintin, kind of helped popularize in the world. It's kind of like that. I think I would do something a bit different, because of course I'm thinking of how would I stand out doing this. But I need to just find a way to just do this a bit until I like it for myself. And then I can kind of figure out where I'll go from there. But it's just cool stuff to me. It just looks really cool. Anyway, where are we? We're talking y'all head up. So we got this down here now. Okay. Media erase out. so I'll try something. I wonder. So that is there, so that should be able to color directly on it. See something? Yeah. Alright, cool. Nope. That's not how that's supposed to work. Though it is funny that it's there. It's not how it's supposed to work. Okay, so that's not doing that either, huh? What is that called? Don't remember, so. Cool. Right, so. Yeah. I don't know why I needed to do that just to see it, but it's not what I want. So I think the good part is now I can kind of do this as well. Yep. So it doesn't even. Well. Okay, I see what I need to do. Of course. Interesting. Okay. Whether or not on this one. Alright, so be too much. If that was the case, why wouldn't I just... Of course. Alright. So that's been getting somewhere. What else would I like to do? Okay, so this probably needs to get redrawn when I think about it that way. Just look back at the reference. Alright, so this is supposed to technically be laying flat. I don't have it like that. Supposed to be there. Okay, so it's another thing I need to do. This part is a little bit confusing, but right, the middle is right there. So what I also need to do is, okay. Now, why did not draw that in there? Strange. It's weird. Wonder if I could like re-angle that or something. Yo, how's it going, Thero? Okay, I can see the problem now. It's looking a bit better. I have to go through and make a lot of this stuff neater. Then I have to add some more dimension to it. But then I have to push it back so that it doesn't stick out too much. And then I might be done. That's pretty cool. I already forgot that I already literally made that to work out that way. Okay. Let's add a bit more here. And of course, I'm not supposed to do it from there. Alright, so far that's how that's looking. Let's throw on this. So I'm thinking what I should do is lighten the areas on the right hand side so that you don't spend too much time on the right hand side. So see here, so what I want to do is probably go for this value here. I'm going to go, you can turn on everything honestly. I'm just going to go, I guess above. And then I'm just going to grab stuff here. And we're going to see what we can do. Where I try and lightly go over, yeah, the lines there. See, now it almost draws attention. Nope, it's not the right method we want to go with. Might want to maybe I do it a little bit lighter, or it's got to be a cool trick I can use. Kind of works, but kind of doesn't. Let's go for. Well, we go for some shadow then. But see, shadow would. Actually, that's not so bad. It's not so bad. Okay, I think we're almost done. Probably could say that for another 3 hours, honestly. Like it's never completely there, you know. So everything is relatively where I need it to be. I need to change from this tool. Okay. I'm gonna reselect everything. So one of the things that I like to do to kind of make sure my lighting is exactly how I want it to be is kind of force it a little bit more. So what I'll do is I'll grab like a value or something. My values look decent right now. What I'll do is I'll just throw down this whole thing like this. And what I'll do is I will pick out the areas of light that I want to be the most. So I'll just go through and I'll erase out where I don't want like this to be essentially. So, I mean, the other thing I could just do is use like a soft eraser or something. So this essentially allows me to control the intensity of the light. Where else would I like it to be? Um, Alright, so, and then we have areas where I'm just probably not gonna have it touch at all. Right, so the background doesn't need to be touched at all. So now we have the windows, which I don't think I will actually touch for the most part. Jump back over here with a soft whatchamacallit, so I know we kind of race out a little bit more. Alright, and for the most part, all I'll do now is take this layer and change the opacity a bit. Like, this is what it's like when it's at 0. I can put it up to at least like 10, 15, 20. I don't know. Check our values. Why not? So there is something else we can do, right? We can also go ahead and go to selection from layer, create a selection, which I don't know why I'm already doing that with the other thing, but go here, do it again, create a selection from layer, and then we go ahead and invert the selection. Now we're selecting everything else. Create a layer above. You just grab white, and you can just go ahead and fill in everything else. And now we can again change that as well. So can lighten that area up a bit. Of course we can, so again, this is regular. This is essentially just the area. Right, I need to erase out everything on that side, because of course I do. Give me a second. So if there is something over here, I believe that's getting hit. Cool. Right, there we go. So I don't really need that to be on that. So okay. Turn that down to about like 30, yeah. Put these two together. Let's say, hold on now. Alright, so yeah, so this is us kind of formatting our priorities essentially. So without it's like this, which looks still good. I don't know, like both of them honestly. But this one kind of forces a little bit more like, here's the hierarchy a little bit more of what's in front versus what's behind. Works. Turn that on. And I, of course, can still readjust some of those things because maybe I want to redo the lighting. Looking around like 25, 26 looks good. Yeah, somewhere around there. It was funny. The only thing that I was like, okay, maybe like I haven't come up with a color for this darn bucket. Well, it's a bowl. It's not a bucket, but this bowl. And I'm like, I think I can make it more interesting if I like figure out something for it, you know. But I still haven't come up with anything for this thing. Thinking brown would be good, a good color for it. Good orange. But it can't be too. Whoa, what? Well, that's funny. Someone's trying to FaceTime someone. More things I have to edit. When did that dot get there? No. Where did this dot come from? Okay, well, it's probably from this layer here. Alright, you know what? I'll be back tomorrow around the usual time, people. I have to go. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow around 5 through 7. And thanks so much for stopping through the stream. Peace, everyone.